Hi, I'm Annie Botticelli, and welcome to my November 2019 horoscope report for you. This month we have double the sweet aspects compared to the salty ones, and when that happens, it sets a mood for the general transits that's harmonious and happy. And we have Mercury Retrograde, and Mercury in Retrograde brings things from the past back into the forefront. So when we have the combination of sweetness in the stars and Mercury Retrograde, it tends to bring sweet things from the past, happiness from the past, projects from the past, and even work that was done in the past coming to fruition or outcomes coming in a wonderful way. So we have all of that as an increased possibility in store. The mood of the month is very much still dominated by Scorpio because most of the personal planets are putting their energy through that filter, and that means it's a lot of emotional intensity. So it's definitely an emotional month, but it's definitely a good sign that there are more sweet aspects because the chance for breakthroughs are much more likely when that happens. We have Sag energy starting to dribble in, and so Sagittarius tends to show us the light at the end of the tunnel, especially when it's happening amidst this emotional time. So if you've been moving through an emotional tunnel, the Sag light at the end will start to become more apparent, and towards the end of the month that will get stronger and set us up for the Sagittarius party that is going to happen in December. So the mood will definitely start to lighten throughout the month. Something else huge that we have going on is one of my favorite aspects of the whole year, which is the Venus-Jupiter conjunction. So we're going to talk about what that can bring in general, and we're also going to zero in on your personal chart to see what field of experience that's going to occur, so you know where extra goodies can be from that aspect. I'll also share that date. I'm going to share with you all of the dates that are challenging, all of the dates that are sweet, so that you can mark them in your calendar. Also, we have eclipse rumblings. The eclipses are going to start showing up in big ways. December and January, we have eclipses, but we can often see manifestations, news, trajectory changes from the eclipses at least 4 to 6 weeks before they occur. That's why I always talk about them early, because here in November, we are very likely to see things coming in from that December eclipse. So I'm going to give you more information about that, a lot of information about the eclipse cycle so you can understand it for your patterns and your storylines. And I'll also, again, zero in on where exactly, what field of experience in your chart you will see this eclipse manifest and what kinds of things I've tended to see go along with that. I'm an astrology teacher, so I always use the charts to show you why things may happen instead of just what may happen. So if you want to learn, you're definitely in store for a wonderful learning experience. You can go to my website, anniehelpsyou.com, to see many more free blogs. I also have tons of other resources on there, including signing up for my free email newsletter, which gets you a general transit write-up of all the dates, all the aspects that are notable, and what you can expect from them 1 month early in your inbox. And if you love how I teach and you want to learn, you can see my astrology apprenticeship program at anniehelpsyou.com, as well as my other offerings. And definitely check out my book, Radical Prayer, Transform Your Life and the World in 28 Days, a wonderful spiritual companion for anyone who's seeking and who wants to create the life of their dreams. So you can go to radicalprayerbook.com. So let's see what the stars have in store for you. Hello, Gemini friends. Most of the things I talk about, or at least many of the things I talk about, will be true for all Gemini placements, but there are going to be details where I drill down into more specifics, and that will require you to know where in the Gemini spectrum you are. So early degree Geminis, you're basically the May born, or 0 to 9 degrees, middle, around June 1st through 10th, or 10 to 19 degrees, and late, June 11th through the rest of the sign, or 20 to 29 degrees. My friends with Gemini rising, Gemini moon, this report is for you equally as for the sun placements, because the moon chart, the sun chart, and the rising chart, which is also the natal chart, are all windows out of our experience that show us more pieces of the total astrological picture for each individual. So I always recommend that you watch at least the report for your sun and rising. And if you want to have extra, you can check it out for your moon too. Okay, so the three things that I want to focus on for this Gemini-specific information is, first of all, just the domination of the personal planet signs this month and how those interact with your placement and what that tends to bring. The second thing I want to talk about is one of my favorite days of the year, Jupiter and Venus conjunction, what that can bring and where you're going to have that in your chart. And the third thing has to do with the eclipses. Okay, so the first eclipse that's going to be occurring soon after November, but will absolutely affect and could even dominate November in many ways. We're going to talk about where that is going to hit for you, and then I will give you a massive amount of info on this eclipse cycle and how I've seen it manifest in the houses, that will be affecting you, so that you can understand how it may affect you now. So the first thing to know is that we still have a domination of Scorpio planets. I'm circling this Mars here because towards the end of the month it will be there too. The Sun will be there most of the month. Mercury will be there all month because it's in retrograde. When the personal planets move through Scorpio, which happens around this time every year, so you can kind of note what I'm going to talk about here because this will be a yearly thing when this occurs, makes an uncomfortable angle. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so there's 5 signs between Gemini and Scorpio. There are 30 degrees in each sign, so that's a 150-degree angle. There is an art to astrology that's in the eye of the reader, and there's a science to astrology that is based in math. And the angles that signs make to each other flavor how they mix. Okay, so there's an essence, there's a quality to the mathematical angle, and that tells us how those mix. Okay, so 150-degree angle is super awkward. All right, so it can be uncomfortable, it could just be kind of weird, it can be incoherent. So you might notice Scorpio energy for you, and this could even be, people or whatever, that it doesn't quite blend harmoniously with Gemini placements. It's hard to understand, it can be heavy, it can be weird. It's very emotional, for one thing, and, Gemini energy is more rolling in the mental plane and, doing things and talking and thinking. So expect some awkwardness. However, since the predominance of the aspects this month are sweet ones in the general transits, that can help to bring some benevolence. So there are twice as many sweet aspects as there are salty ones. So that could help to soften some of the awkwardness, but just note that it will be there. And just for your own process, I always like to help people sharpen their intuition, their connection to the stars. So if you just kind of notice how those energies make you feel, you'll see what I mean about that. Good news for Geminis is that trickling through the month, getting stronger towards the end of the month, and being getting into full bore into December, the Sag party starting. Okay, so all month Venus is going to hit every single one of your Gemini placements through an opposition, which we'll talk about. And then in December, Mercury will get there. At the end of the month, the Sun will get there. And this has a completely different effect. This, rather than being kind of like a bummer or being bogged down in emotional energy, and I say bogged down or bummer, but it could, be sweet emotional things. It's just, can feel a little bit laborious because it's, like I said, it's more of an emotional thing. So there could be good emotions, but again, it's just a little bit different than how you usually operate. So when these planets get into Sag, fire works really well with air. This is a nice cycle where they fuel each other, and so you can get excited and inspired and prolific, but what it basically does is it burns you out. Okay, major burnout. So this is great because it's so alike. It's kind of like when if you're a Gemini or you have a Gemini placement, you have a friend that's a Sag, you get together and you're like, blah, 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 and you're talking, you're excited, and then wow, and then you're exhausted. So it's like that. And so this time of year, you will tend to get more burnt out. So you might have to rest more, get more sleep. You might have to take more of your supplements, B vitamins, if those are fine for you, things like that. And you might just be really busy, and you might be so creatively inspired that you're burning the candle at both ends. So although it can be overstimulating, this 180-degree angle, is very exciting, and it's very supportive in many ways to how you are. Very social and overall really positive. Okay, so the next thing that I want to talk about has to do with this Jupiter-Venus conjunction. To understand aspects in astrology, and to understand anything astrology, you have to understand there are layers. You know, there's this layer, then you add it to this, then you add it to this, then you add it to this, and then together they equal different things. So we have to blend the energy of Venus plus the energy of Sag plus the energy of Jupiter to understand what this can bring. So November 24th, or several days before or several days after, this can have in the manifestation. Jupiter and Venus are going to get together at 28 degrees of Sag. So let's talk about some general implications, and then we'll look at the house that's going to happen in for you. All right, if you've been watching my videos for a while, then you know my Grandma Marge. She's passed now, unfortunately, but she is the energetic embodiment of the archetype of Venus. These planets are archetypal energies, and they have, you know, an essence that once we understand it, we can understand astrology, and they're like people. So when I would see my Grandma Marge, she would kiss me on the mouth, typical family Italian style. She'd tell me how wonderful, beautiful I was, and then she would give me money. She would pop a meatball in my mouth. Okay, that's a fork and a meatball. And so this energy of being, you know, and her house was really cozy, you know. So, and it always smelled like food. So like that coziness, that warmth, that love, attention, recognition, money, harmony, sustenance, nurturing. That's the energy of Venus. So in Sag, it's really free and happy and expanded and optimistic. Jupiter rules Sag, so it's just even more so it expands all of that. So luck can be dramatically expanded at this time. Random lucky things. I remember one year when this aspect was happening, me and my family were going to do something we hadn't done in a long time, like decades. And it just magically happened on that very special day that we scored these free tickets to the place we were going, kind of en route. We were there, and then this happened. And then there was this historical occurrence that occurred while we were there. So we were like, we witnessed history while this was happening. And it was just an amazing family memory. And it happened with this luck and this benevolence of this Venus and Jupiter getting together. So there's that. That's going to happen. You can see why I love it so much. So it's going to happen for all early, middle, and late degree placements. See, 28 degrees is about there. 28 degrees about there. Okay, so middle degree and then late degree. So it's going to be a 7th house focus for all of you. The earlier degrees, you might see a little bleep of this in the, or a little blip of this in the 8th house, which we'll talk about in a second. But we'll talk about the 7th house. So this is basically relationships. So like an amazing meeting, romantic expansion, you know, luck within finding a solution if there's a problem, you know, if you're trying to mediate something, scoring an amazing client, getting a perfect practitioner or somebody that can help you with something, like hiring someone that is like your dream person that can, you know, really help you. So because Mercury retrograde energy is still dominating at this time, it might have a tilt to the past. Like, so maybe there's someone you knew or someone who used to work for you or something. Then they come back and you're like, oh my gosh, thank God, all my prayers are answered. So there might be some new energy about it. But there is a strong tilt to the past. So love coming back from the past, a relationship coming back from the past, a relationship being lifted from the dead, like resurrected, you know, making peace with somebody, a friendship coming back together that had dissolved. Or again, like a client coming from the past and buying a whole bunch of stuff, things like that. So look out for that in the relationship space for your early degree placements. So basically the May born or 0 to 9 degrees, you might have this 8th house accentuated, which has to do with shared resources. So loans, you know, getting a loan, getting a refi, capital investments, inheritances, news about that, or somebody just giving you money or loaning you money, paying off debt, something like that. Winning money, spiritual breakthroughs, things like that. Okay, so now let's look at the eclipse. So first of all, this is going to be a 4-degree eclipse, Capricorn, solar eclipse. It's going to occur on December 25th or 26th, around there, depending on your time zone. And I think I explained this already, but just in case, the reason why we're talking about this, even though it doesn't occur until December, is because very often, and I've been tracking this very heavily for decades, looking at thousands of charts through live readings, training astrologers, following them closely myself, around 4 to 6 weeks before an eclipse is like a hot spot. It's like it heats up with eclipse potentials. And that puts us all in pretty much all of November is a hot spot for that December eclipse. Right? So it's a solar eclipse, which tends to bring in new things. Sometimes something old has to be eclipsed out in order for something new to come in. Kind of like the energy of a grandparent passing away and a child being born. You know, I see that happen a lot at eclipse time, where there's something that, an energy that was holding a lot of space, it leaves, and then there's an energy that comes in its place. So the law of, of creation, where matter is never created nor destroyed, it simply changes form, is very, very alive at this time, very much in the forefront. So early degree placements, you will likely see that eclipse in the 8th house and middle, early and middle. It's a really strong chance that can manifest in the 8th house. Middle degree placements and late degree placements, that's more, middle degree, it has a split chance of being in the 7th or 8th. Late degree placements is pretty much in the 7th. Okay, 4 degrees of Cap is in there somewhere. So what's the same about the 8th and 7th house is that they're relationships. We just talked about that with the Venus-Jupiter conjunction. But there are some differences as well. So I would say that even early Geminis could see it in the 7th. So basically, all Gemini placements can see a 7th house manifestation, but the early and middle may also see an 8th house manifestation. So what I'm going to do to properly equip you for this eclipse cycle is I'm going to drop in a lesson about this eclipse cycle, when it started, when it ends, where we're at in it, all the other dates it took place, so you can follow the storylines. I'll talk about when it happened years ago, so you can see what the themes were at that time to kind of understand what's at play here now. So I'll drop that general lesson in, and that will be true for all of you. Then I'm going to drop in the 7th house, or actually, I'll drop in the 8th house eclipse first. No, that's right, 7th. 7th is because all of you can see it there. So we'll do that one first. So I'll drop in the 7th house tutorial about how I have seen 7th house eclipses manifest. Okay, so remember that is all early, middle, and late degree. Then for you middle and early degree placements, I'm also going to drop in the 8th house manifestations. So if you're a late degree person, you can fast forward through that. Although you might want to listen to it as well, because many people who have a Gemini placement have more than one. So even though the eclipse is going to occur this way for the placement that you're watching for, if you have, certain planets next to it, anyway, you can listen to the 8th house 1, 2 late degree placements, but it may or may not have relevance for you in the long run. All right, and then I'm going to talk about the general transits that will affect everyone. And in that segment, I will list all the dates of the sweet aspects, all the dates of the challenging aspects. I'll talk about the very rare transit of Mercury and some other things to know about this month. Okay, so here is my overview for the Cancer Capricorn eclipse cycles. It's always helpful when we're having an astrological cycle that is relevant at the current time to think back to when it happened before, and also to just kind of understand when it's going to happen again in the future. So the last time the Cancer Capricorn eclipse cycle occurred was between 2009 and 2011. And the next time it will happen after now, because we're in it now, is between 2027 and 2029. So what I have here, I'm going to give you a quick overview and timeline of this cycle and show you what we still have left to kind of understand the timeline. The reason why it's important to understand these dates is because there is a storyline that is taking place over the time from the beginning of the eclipse cycle till the end. And the themes were introduced around the time, sometimes a little early, before, so around, July of 2018 or a little bit sooner. The themes that came up, that are going to come up and be present this whole time, started to come up. And then at the end of the cycle, many of the things will have resolved or shifted or come to a conclusion, or whatever that turns out to look like. The reason why I spend so much time and energy in the reports where the eclipse energies are more present is because they tend to bring drama, dramatic conclusions, amazing, brilliant new openings, a shuffling around of energy in a very intense, notable way with major trajectory shifts. And because of this, usually at that period of time, things are going on and people are looking around saying, what the heck is going on? People around me are going through these massive changes. I'm going through changes. Or sometimes you're a space holder for someone else going through changes and not the one having them. But it's like there's something that seems like it's, in the air, and it literally is in the sky, and it is literally down into our experience. So there's this massive shuffling around of energy. So that law that says matter is not created nor destroyed, or can't be created nor destroyed, it simply changes form, is very much evident at eclipse time. So things will be taken away from a certain area, so they'll be eclipsed out, and then energy will be added in to a new area where these new openings will come as things are crossed out. So that's the typical, just general storyline. So as we get closer, and I usually use 4 to 6 weeks before and after each actual eclipse date as the hot spot, I call it, for the eclipse news. But anything related to any of the themes that are going on for this eclipse cycle can happen during any of this time. It doesn't have to be only right near the hot spots, but the odds are greatly increased that news, events, changes, breakthroughs, openings, closes will occur as we're closer to these dates, and that's why they're important. Okay, so July 2nd, 2018, then January 5th, 2019, and then the most recent ones before now were July 2nd and July 16th. If you want to go back to understand those eclipses and try to make more sense of things that occurred then, you can find the information about what house, meaning field of experience for your sign, the eclipses hit for, okay? So basically, the Cancer Capricorn polarity brings tendencies for certain changes to all signs, and they would have to do with the energy of Cancer and the energy of Capricorn. So every sign has had an increased chance of a lot of shuffling around, notable changes, drama, conclusions, new beginnings in the house of home and family, and in the energy of work and your place out in the world, and the dynamic and push and pull between those places, and energies of mother and father and parenting and maternal energy and paternal energy and your inner authority, your outer authority. Every sign has been having storylines from this eclipse cycle in those polarities. But when it's eclipse time, I also drill down into the houses that they occur for each sign. And that gets even more specific about how it affects you when you were born, what your rising sign is, what your moon sign is. You can look at these reports to drill it down even further. Okay, so for the July eclipse, if you look at my June report, and this is 2019, you can get more insight into that. And then for the July 16th eclipse, again, these happened already, but sometimes retrospectively going back to have understanding is helpful. You can see my July 2019 report for that. Now, bringing us to the present time, we're in the November report, and I am going to be talking about this December 25th eclipse. Depending on your time zone, that might actually happen on the 26th, but in either case, it's at 4 degrees of Capricorn. So to follow this general drop-in, I'm going to show you where in your personal charts this eclipse is going to hit and what things you can expect with that. Then probably the December report I'll devote to talking about Jupiter moving into Capricorn. There is a chance I might talk about the January of 2020 eclipse in the December report, but I'm not sure yet. So, check out the December, and then definitely know by the January report I will be telling you where this January 10th eclipse will be hitting for you. And then the last eclipse has happened. So you see I have these kind of grouped this way because this is one set, and then this is the last set here in June and July of 2020. So those dates will end out this whole cycle, and things that began here will be getting wrapped up, moving along. And so you can kind of understand that where we're at. So the story in many cases is not done yet. Maybe there will be some kind of conclusion or final chapter that occurs, and then maybe, these ones here are the integration time or follow-up things or something like that. But for the most part, we're in a storyline that's still in process. And regardless of the finality or the occurrences that happen at this time, probably we're going to need until the end of this cycle in order for us to see the conclusion of the story that we are almost done with. So now I'm going to show you the charts of your particular sign and show you what houses or fields of experience this December 25th, 26th eclipse is going to occur, and what themes specifically you can expect with that. Eclipses are major astronomical events, and they're also major astrological events. They bring things into the focus in a major way, and although sometimes during eclipse cycles, certain individuals are not as notably or obviously affected, but sometimes these changes are more subtle, and we have to look harder to see that there's a paradigm shift at play or something else working in the inner realms that aren't necessarily manifest in a huge way. A lot of how we experience an eclipse will depend on the exact degree of the eclipse sign and how that interacts with our placement. So it's very complex, but certain things are very common, which is an increase in focus on the field of experience that the sign or house rules, drama, for better or worse, dramatic conclusions, brilliant new openings, or movement along chapters, closing of a chapter, opening of a new chapter in certain areas. So when there's an eclipse in the 7th house or Libra, one of the biggest things is relationships. A new relationship comes in, an old relationship ends, or even a new relationship ends, beginnings and endings of relationships, or movement along a continuum of key relationships, or the relationship to relationship. What comes up a lot at this time is the topic of codependency. Codependency extends beyond even what the AA definition was, and the way that codependency was originally defined was that there was an alcoholic or a substance abuser, they were the addict, and then the codependent was the person who kind of had to dance around the erratic nature of living with someone who's an addict. But then, of course, things get more complex because a lot of people who have addictions also have codependency issues where they draw in other people who have problems. And basically, the main point the way I define codependency is that it's a boundary disease or a boundary issue. And so eclipses in the 7th house or Libra tend to bring up boundary topics. Are you setting too many boundaries and blocking out intimacy that you want? Are you not setting enough boundaries? Are you setting boundaries in a way that you're going to get what you want? Or are they from fear? Are they from old programming? The question of boundaries is one of the biggest things that I see coming up. So movement along in gaining what I call interdependence, where, yes, we need other people. We need to interact with other people. It's part of being human to connect with others. But how we do that, and the fulfillment that we have or don't have, the patterns that we brought with us into our current relationships that we have to or get a chance to own, so being really accountable at this time with owning what made us be attracted to a certain type of person or a certain type of situation, and doing the inner work to be able to shift our vibrational magnetism for certain types of situations rather than just blaming another person. Eclipses in the 7th house or in Libra also often bring in perfect practitioners or helpers. So, or bring endings to those relationships. So maybe you've been working with a practitioner for a while and you complete your work with them. Or maybe you've had someone working for you or you've been working with. So, agreements about working together with someone can come to an end. It can come to a fruition, like you reach the goal or the objective. Or you can have a new practitioner or a new helper come in. This time is really great for finding people to help you in any area of life, whether it's a counselor or, a mechanic or an assistant or anything like that. Can, eclipse in or end or change a relationship to those things or with any of those people. And so in general, agreements come in a big way. Coming to an agreement on a topic that needs mediation or is in mediation or where there's a disagreement, there's often notable movement when there's a 7th house or Libra eclipse having to do with agreements between people. Aesthetics and design is another topic that also comes up. So new design projects, new ways of, working your space or working your wardrobe or, artwork or anything like that can come in. So new systems for your aesthetics, redesign, design projects, or if your work is in design, that can be highlighted as well. This time is also really great for movement along if you're trying to build clients, like client relationships. Certain clients could be eclipsed out, or certain ways of relating to them, or how you go about interacting with them. So that's also included in the relationship space. So in general, the 7th house in Libra eclipses will feature relationships and your relationship to relationships and any key people in your life and your agreements with them. Anything unresolved in relationships are often going to come up, and anything that's been worked on can come to a magical fruition. Eclipse season, which I call the 4 to 6 weeks before or after eclipses, tend to bring in themes that had been in process and tend to bring movement along in certain areas of life. When there are eclipses in the 8th house or Scorpio, the focus comes to everything in these divisions. So dramatic endings, brilliant new beginnings, trajectory shifts, breakthroughs, sudden news that changes everything are very common at this time. So the 8th house in Scorpio relates to other people's money. This is a general topic, and under that header, there are many different things. We've got familial money, so like from your parents or other family members. We have spousal money, so, you and your partner, their work, their income, their lives, their family. And so something can happen with a spouse that affects you. And also your shared money. It's other people's money and it's also shared money. So, collaborations where you're working, sharing your resources with other people's resources. Capital, if you need money for something. So getting loans, new loans, current or prospective loans. So trying to get a loan for something. This can also have to do with credit cards, debt, taxes, So we often see things notable. Maybe taxes are paid off, or a tax bill comes, or something notable as far as it relates to a tax profile. This also has to do with intimacy, like deep emotional closeness, and also anything having to do in the sexual realm. So very notable occurrences can happen. Major endings of intimate relationships, major breakthroughs in intimacy, new partners coming in, new experiences. The topic of power is one that's very common at eclipse time with 8th house and Scorpio representation. How other people are using power, how you are using your power. People not using their power in the right way. People who have power and influence that you connect with that can help you, or you using your power or influence to affect or help other people. Psychology and parapsychology are also topics that are in the 8th house. So basically understanding how the human mind works and what makes people tick, the interest in studying that, the lines of work that rule that, also anything having to do with investments, like financial investments or cryptocurrency, new opportunities, things closing, drama, moving along a continuum, new chapters in anything with finances or investments, or how you go about investing, or philosophies, or the psychology of money and the psychology of just in general. So studying those things. Parapsychology. So once you get deep into psychology, there's a pretty easy line into parapsychology. And then in that realm, it's directly connected. Everything is spirit. So spiritual breakthroughs, spiritual studies, I see a lot of palmistry, I Ching, astrology, numerology, metaphysics in this area. So breakthroughs along those fronts, or new resources, or new teachers, or you doing your work in those realms. And this can actually just be mainstream psychology as well. But it can be anything esoteric. Anything that's like the most mundane as far as it relates to psychology, or anything that's the most expanded, and kind of out of the main sector. The topic of mysteries is common. So solving a mystery, having a new mystery come in, having mysterious circumstances, or even for some people, it's just writing a mystery book or getting really into reading a mystery book. So just the topic of the things that are lesser seen is really what the themes are that, that have to do with this eclipse in the 8th house or Scorpio. Some of the ways I've seen it manifest are, marriages where your money is combined, divorces where your money is separated, people passing away or discussing wills or naming you in an inheritance, whether they're here or not, the topic of what happens to your money or someone else's money when you or they transition. Anything having to do with the pairing up or the merging of resources on any level. So I've seen people win the lotto with things like in here. I've seen people win sweepstakes. I've seen major luck in money happen, and I've seen major surprise expenses or other notable things involving money happen. All eclipses tend to bring a strong amount of emotion because eclipses are related to the moon, and the moon rules our inner realm, our emotional space. But when there's an eclipse in a water sign, and specifically Scorpio, which is really, a very deep abyss of energy, there does tend to be quite a bit of emotion. And this can be for better or worse, but it is, very emotional when the eclipse happens in Scorpio or the 8th house. So having a way to deal with these intense emotions is one of the best ways to be prepared for this eclipse cycle, because you can be more clear and make better decisions and make better use of the opportunities that come, navigate through any challenges that come when you can take the emotional charge off of things. I have a lot of things that I love for emotional energy, but EFT, the Emotional Freedom Technique, you can look this up online, has a lot of good science behind it. It's not just an energy tool. And you can manage your emotions and clear through emotional patterning with that resource. And there's tons of free stuff online. And it's important to focus on the emotional realm, even if it's not coming from the outside, because this eighth house, with being the house of psychology, also has to do with the emotional patterning that creates the fabric of your reality. So making major changes in the patterns of your life is another way that the eighth house can show up. And this can also include the topic of codependency, which I also list under seventh house and Libra eclipses, because these seventh and eighth houses are the partnership houses. So how you relate to other people, your relationship to relationship, not just the key relationships, are something that tends to come up when there's an eclipse in the eighth house or Scorpio. And the question of your energy and other people's energy, your money and other people's money, and finding a balance and finding your footing in resources and connections with others is going to be a major hot topic at this time. Okay, so I'm going to give you the visuals on the general transits that will affect all signs for November 2019. And definitely remember that what I'm giving you here is a summary of some of the things to watch out for. If you want a more complete written list of the general transits that are most notable and the energies and potentials that go along with them, delivered into your inbox 1 month early, then definitely go to AnnieHelpsYou.com. And at AnnieHelpsYou.com, you can sign up for my free email newsletter. Annie Helps You, that's supposed to say YOU. It's not legible. Then you sign up for my free email newsletter, and I will send you a written report about this general transit energy a month beforehand, so that you have it for your planning purposes and you have it, as a visual. Okay, so like I mentioned, the first thing to know about this month is that there are around 12 awesome aspects and around 6 more challenging ones. So whenever we have a month where there's like double the nice ones compared to the challenging ones, then it sets a tone for the month that is super sweet. Now, as I always give this disclaimer, I will give it again. The general transits are just that. They're general. They're happening. This is one layer of absolute truth that is occurring for everyone. But your personal chart, the way the planets are hitting in your actual chart, which we can't see a lot of that. We can see the sun sign, the rising sign in the horoscopes, but there are all these planets here in your chart. And the way that the current planetary arrangements are hitting all of those planets for you could cause you to have a different experience than is the general theme or mood. Okay, but now back to speaking about this general mood. It's super sweet because we have so much more of this sweet aspect energy. The second very important thing to remember, and we'll look at this in the chart, is that Mercury is going retrograde. I talked in detail about Mercury retrograde in October because I always talk about things early because we feel them happening early. So between October 31st or November 1st, depending on your time zone, Mercury is actually going to start its retrograde process. On October 12th, it started its pre-shadow or its pre-transit shadow period. So every day from October 12th through the 31st, we were going deeper into the energies of Mercury retrograde, which is why I talked about them in the October reports. But now, on these days, it's actually occurring. Okay, so this Mercury is going to go back. Now, again, you see this, we're not looking at, we're looking at not the house configurations for this chart because we're not looking at a certain sign. We're just looking at the mathematical relationships between the planets. So this reading is for everybody. So Mercury is going to go back from 27 degrees of Scorpio back to 11 degrees of Scorpio. And so if you have any placements that are between 27 and 11 degrees, that especially in mathematical, connection to Scorpio, then is going to be more intense for you. And I did talk about more of those details in the October reports for all signs, but just to kind of, have a guideline here. Since it stays retrograde until November 20th, the whole mood of the month has to do with things from the past. Now, some new things can pop through, but there's going to be this strong theme of energies from the past. So I'm calling it sweetness from the past because there's so much sweetness and the energy is tilted, backwards. Now, we also talked about the fact that there are eclipse rumblings, and there are because as early as November, you may start to see some eclipse news come in. But you can definitely look to the sign reports, individual sign reports for November to see where they're going to hit for each of your signs and also have an overview of this eclipse cycle. The days of the sweet aspects. Okay, so we'll put our big smiley face here. Okay, so November 3rd, 8th, 9th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 23rd, 24th, 26th, 28th, 29th, and 30th. Sometimes the energies from the transits that happen on a certain day can be felt before or after that day. So don't hang your hat too closely to the exact day, but just kind of know that there's a lot of sweetness around the days here. The challenging ones are on the 5th, 11th, 14th, 20th, 24th, and 26th. You notice how sometimes the same day will have either an aspect that could go either way or multiple aspects, one that could be sweet and one that could be salty. You see that happening actually on the 24th too, and also on the 11th. The 24th of November is one of my favorite days of the whole year because it is the Venus-Jupiter conjunction. And this is very potentially expansive to love, self-esteem, money, blessings, luck, just amazing things coming out of the blue. In this case, since the energies are in Sagittarius, which is, Jupiter rules Sagittarius, so there's some extra energy of Sag in this storyline. There's even potential for more luck since Sagittarius rules good luck and expansion and things involving education and publishing and traveling and learning and teaching and spiritual evolution. So definitely put a nice big star in the days around here. Now, do remember, of course, like we talked about, there is also a salty aspect on the 24th and 26th. So those things could also be happening, but this is still a pretty powerful aspect to note. Something else really important to note as well is November 11th. November 11th has an aspect that day. The sun in Scorpio is conjunct Mercury. Okay, so then that day, this and this will get together and amplify each other's energy, bringing potential intensity for better or worse. But occurring on that same day is a very rare transit of Mercury. Okay, so this only happens around 13 times in a century. And the next times they'll happen will be 2032 and 2039. For your reference to think back, if there was anything notable that occurred for you, the last time this happened was May 9th, 2016. It also happened November 8th, 2006, May 7th, 2003, November 15th, 1999. So sometimes it's really helpful to be able to go back and see if periods of time had something noteworthy for you, because sometimes that can help you better understand how the energy may manifest. So basically with the transit of Mercury, for a short time with a telescope, you can actually see Mercury, tiny, very tiny, crossing over the path of the sun. So that's a pretty cool astronomical occurrence, but it also turns out to be energetically a very cool astrological occurrence. And so, you know, it just can add to the intensity. Mercury rules news and travel and communication and devices for that. So breakthroughs in communication, really big news, really big physical shifts, things like that could be prominent at this time. Okay, so those are the things most on my mind, just to give you a summary of this month of the general transits. Definitely sign up for my free email newsletter at anniehelpsyou.com, because you can see more about what I do in that newsletter is all of these dates that I list. I tell you what the aspect is and what kinds of energies tend to go along with them. So I have these all itemized out. Okay, also, if you want more information about the month, I do also do written horoscopes at cozybysweetstarlight.com. And they're often talking about different things than I talk about in the videos. Okay, so Cozy by Sweet, this is all one URL, starlight.com. You can get monthly horoscopes, again, around a month early on there to get more information, and you can go to anniehelpsyou.com in order to get more blogs. And actually on Cozy, there are also lots of other astrology blogs, astrology for wellness blogs, and other positive lifestyle blogs. And at anniehelpsyou.com, I have lots of astrology blogs for the full moon, for the new moon. So I put together lots of things for you to be able to make the most of the energetic potentials. Definitely go to anniehelpsyou.com to check out all of my free blogs. You can also check out my Astrology Basics and Beyond course if you want to learn the basics of astrology. If you want to go into an insane amount of in-depth astrology wonder, then you can check out my Astrology Apprenticeship program that can teach you how to use astrology for anything from self-development, helping yourself, helping your friends and family, to being a professional astrologer full on. I can help you with that. You can check my course out at anniehelpsyou.com. I also have a coach certification course. I also have a Creating Successful Online Business course that teaches you how to create an online presence and funnel that presence into your paid services so that you can roam free as a bird like I am. You can see I'm in a random place recording because I'm traveling and trying to get these recordings done for you. So you can see all of that at anniehelpsyou.com. Definitely check out my husband, B.R. Newman's site, iamhelios.com, iamhelios.com. He is going to soon have a tarot companion guide, an astrology companion guide that serve as your helpers in your study process as well, plus other cool offerings that he has there and a lot of free stuff as well. Go to see my book, Radical Prayer, Transform Your Life in the World in 28 Days. It has become a beloved bedside companion and purse and card-toting companion to my fellow spiritual seekers, so I have heard. So you can see that at radicalprayerbook.com. If you love my shirt, this was sent to me by an amazing woman, with an artist with a beautiful story. And she creates these awesome astrology design garments and all kinds of other designs as well. So you can see her story. These are also all hand stitched by adults in Canada. So you can check that out in the notes below this video. So when you click on the ... or more, all of my websites will be there. The link to see more about these designs will be there. I hope you have a wonderful month, and I'll see you next month. Bye.